some of the great champions, they'll go, well, it's just one match. I remember we've got one great champion, Agbeg Nanu. She's a 5-time world champion. She's an Olympic champion. She's favorite as well to get this Olympic gold medal. French. What a great champion she is, because she lost one of the matches. I mean, she'd come back and she'd given birth, come back after giving birth. And everybody was going, well, was she, but then she lost one of the matches on the way through. And she said, well, don't be upset. It's just one match. It's just one contest, Next time I'm going to put it right. And she did put it right. And now she's back up there and she won the world title back. So, these are great champions for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the right way to see it. But it's also tragic to lose the Olympic Games,
Twice.
Thanks.
Yes. It is tragic. And I do have sleepless nights.
I mean, that's the magic of the Olympic Games. Anything can happen. And your 1980 Olympics were very different from the 1984. But if we just linger on the 80, and just we were talking about how much you wanted to win. Do you love winning or hate losing more?
I hate losing more, but I love winning. When I won the world title a year later, and I had no doubt when I went in that day that I was going to be world champion. No doubt.
So you won the 81 world championship?
At the higher weight.
At the 78
yes.
kg. Actually, can we go there? What was going through your mind? You ended up armbarring a Japanese fighter. I talked to Jimmy Pedro, a friend of yours, somebody who said you were a mentor to him for many years, and he's told me a bunch of different questions to ask you, but he said that was a really special time. That was a really special, dominant run you had. And especially finishing with an armbar against a Japanese player. So take me through that. What do you remember from that?
I think that it was, so my weight was better. I didn't have to lose weight. That was one thing. So the nutritional side wasn't as important, but probably, it still wasn't as good as it could be, my nutrition. Although it was getting better and I was trying to eat the right things at the right time. But I still trained really well, and I was so confident that going into that World Championships that I could win it. I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to win, but obviously, corner of your mind, you're thinking, just don't make mistakes. But this is the incredible thing: is that once you start to ask you, once I see contests change direction when I'm commentating, so I can see somebody who's in there just going forward, just trying to win, right? So and that's a difference to somebody who's trying not to lose. And there's two different ways there, so sometimes when when I was world champion, then I had a period of time where every time I stepped out there, I was really afraid of losing. And I think that that's what happens later on in your competitive career. The great champions manage to come through that. Teddy Riner is one of those. He puts it out there and he keeps beating them. So they can't take it away from him. It's fantastic.
So stepping on the mat, every single encounter, you're trying to win. You're looking for the grips and with the intention to throw big, even when you're ahead on points, all that kind of stuff.
That's a really good point, is that if you go ahead in a match and you look at the clock, it depends when you go ahead. So sometimes you can go ahead in the first minute and you've still got 3 minutes to go. So I see the ones then that go into, I don't want to lose, because they go into defensive mode. And then sometimes they can lose it on penalties or something can go wrong. And the other one comes on strong and then they can sneak the contest. And so it's really difficult. But when I was coaching, I was trying to always encourage that positive attitude for the full 4 minutes, 5 minutes then.
I've competed a lot in judo and jiu-jitsu. I've always hated that part of myself. When I'm up on points by a lot, you look at the clock, and it's what you do when you look at the clock. It's a minute and a half, you're really tired, and you kind of quit. You just defend.
Yeah.
And
You
I
go in,
hated that part about myself. It's like
you're
that.
saying don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as opposed to just go out in judo, that's for a big throw. Just keep going for the throw. In jiu-jitsu, it's go for the submission. Like throw caution,
Yeah.
like win in the real way versus on points. And I hated that part of myself. I mean, mostly underneath that is cowardice induced by exhaustion.
Exhaustion's the one, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
but it is, isn't it? It's a mindset as well, you know.
Yeah.
So actually trying to get your mind positive all the way through, you know. So I mean, if you listen when I commentated now, is I say I hope that they don't change the mindset and that they keep on, and they are going forward all the time, you know. And actually, they're then more difficult to catch. We had one just a couple of weeks ago, and he lost in the final second of the contest. Lost the final. He was the only one to score. He got penalized all the way up. 2 seconds to go and stepped out of the area. And, you know, but he went like that, thinking the bell was just going. And the bell went 1 second after he actually stepped out. So he got penalized, lost the match, and lost all of the points for qualification. So it was, you know, that's paying high price. That's paying high price.
Yeah, I mean there's a thin line between triumph and tragedy in those competitions, but especially at the Olympic Games. So let's just stick on 81 World Championship. What did it feel like to win that World Championship? Like and also getting an arm bar against a Japanese player. Jimmy told me your arms were exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, you just, the thing is sometimes, you know, when it's competitive as well, you know, ours is a different intensity to like, where you can take time a little bit. Ours is bang, it's transitioning from standing down. You've got 10, 15 seconds to go in there. You go in 100%. It's a bit like running, you know, full out for 10 seconds, like, and then you've got to decide then, especially if they're defending it, whether you let it go, because when you get up and your forearms are blown, you know, and you've got lactic acid in there and you've still got to grip up, because remember, ours is about gripping as well on the jacket. So if you can't grip up, then you can't gain the advantage, then they can throw you, you know, so you have to decide. So I had a massive attack on him, and we changed directions 4 or 5 times, and then I wasn't going to let him go. But I still, you know, when I was turning him there, I had to decide, am I going to go all out for this and just, or, you know, like there has been occasions when I've kind of released it to just, you know, if I got a minute to go and just lock out. Yeah.
So what you're saying on the feet, there was a change of direction, all different kinds of attempts, and then you went to the ground, and that's so what was that? Do you remember that decision of like, okay, am I going to finish this?
Yeah, I knew it. I just, as soon as I climbed his back, and then I thought I'm not going to let him up, you know. So I was just changing.
Voice in your head.
Little something in my head was going, don't, you know, just stick on him. And then it's always about pressure on the arm. And I just, you know, and of course he was like that, you know, defending, you know, he was almost total bridge trying to get out of it.
Did it start in turtle and then like, did you flip
started
him?
In turtle because I did an attack, came back out of the attack, and then he went on to his front, and then I was on his back, and then I started the whole
saw an
turtle.
opening and you just went for it?
It was an automatic transition. So, I mean, the transitions are what we teach, you know, because the ones that are quicker down with the transitions are the ones that catch it. That's our newaza. You know, our groundwork is the transition from standing down to ground. It's very, you know, we don't have a situation where you can kind of work your way in. You are in or you're not in, you're standing, you know, so you got to make sure that you're in. And so I was just on his back like a leech, and I never let him go.
So so that's where the arm bars, that's where the attacks on the ground, which is called newaza, happens is in the transition.
Yes.
At that level, at that high world-class level.
Yeah, I mean, he was no mug either. I think he just got third place in the All Japan Championships, which is all weight categories. So he wasn't a mug, you know. He was strong, and I'd fought him once before, and I knew he was a lefty as well, which was really awkward for me.
Did it feel good?
Better for me than him.
Did
Yes,
it?
it did. It felt amazing, because it was almost like all these things, disappointments, and everything had kind of come to this one point where I was at last kind of champion of the world. It's everything I said as a kid that I had no idea how difficult it was going to be. So as a kid, as a 14-year-old kid, I remember saying, I'm going to be world champion. I'm going to be the best in the world. I had no idea how difficult that was going to be.
Well, there's wisdom to that, right? Like, there's power and stupidity of youth,
I like that.
right? Like,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
just like I'm going to be world champ, I'm going to
Yeah.
win this without knowing how hard it is. And then once you go after it, it's you're trapped. You're going to have to do the work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it a lot with parents as well, don't
Yeah.
you? Parents, how little Johnny is, he's amazing and he's this, that, and the other. And they have no idea what's, out
Yeah.
there. I remember the very first
Yeah.
time I stepped out, 1974, into the European cadets. And I remember that we were fighting. I'd only ever fought in Great Britain. I was the top, I was unbeaten in the juniors, kids. And went out there, and there were these different fighters out there that were treating me with total disdain. And I remember thinking, how dare they? And I realized when I came back from that event, there's other people out there. There's just a whole, and there are different levels of, the majority of people are just not informed as to what's out there and the different levels that there are out there.
Do you remember like a certain opponent that for the first time you felt like, holy shit? Like,
Yeah.
There's like somebody just gripped you up and you're like, there's another level to this game.
Ezio was one of them, and I fought him, and I beat him in the European Championships. I beat him in, two times, and then lost to him in the Olympic Games 2 months after I'd beaten him in the European Championship.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't that
So that's
made it even more difficult, right?
Nemesis there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that made it more difficult. And so Ezio was one, and getting hold of, I remember getting hold of Nishida of Japan, and he had me going up and down, and I thought, wow, this guy is amazing, and I'd never fought, first time I ever fought Japanese in a major tournament, and I felt the danger. I always talk about the danger when we go out to Japan to train.
Mhm.
I could go probably months without getting thrown in training here in Europe, and I go to Japan, and everybody's throwing you, and that's difficult to accept. And the reason that kind of danger and that kind of a feeling of danger is something that puts a real edge on, and so that was the first time when I got a hold of Nishida. I thought, oh my God, this guy, it didn't matter which way he was turning like that, he stretched out, and I thought this, I want to do this, and then I ended up fighting him again in Japan.